Hello, good evening, and welcome to Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast. Tonight we are talking turf. You may have noticed that I am leading the introductions today. Our guest, Paul Hurst, has a history or a background within the turf industry over in America. So I am going to host this one. Phil is going to be the usual brains of the operation. Before I get introducing everybody, if I could just ask you to like, rate and review the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you could like the video, subscribe would be great. We have a Buy Me a Coffee set up. If you go to www.buymeacoffee.com, search Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast, you can donate and support the podcast if you so wish. Just a quick one for my mum, Teresa Butler. She is walking all over cancer for March, 10,000 steps a day. She is trying to raise money for everyone struggling with cancer, my father and his battle with lung cancer as well. If you could drop a donation there, that would be good. Enough of the money talk. Let's get into it. Let's introduce my co-host as always. Phil, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm nice and relaxed. I'm going to be a backseat driver today, which is and makes a nice change. I'm just going to be directing and being that annoying kind of like, oh, you should have gone that way. Got my Chicago Bears jersey on today, just in, acknowledge our American friends on the pod. And yeah, just looking forward to where we're going today.
Good. Right. I should say the focus of today's podcast is going to be social media and the use of social media to promote yourself, potentially your business, and positive vibes. And we're going to move into the power of positivity after that. Our guest, let's get into him. Being described as potentially the most interesting man in turf at the minute. I would describe him as certainly one of the busiest men in turf, the 19th most influential person in turf in 2021. Paul Hurst, good evening. How are you, sir?
Doing well, guys. How are we doing?
Really well. Really well. And so good of you to join us. You know, you've been a busy man lately.
Yeah.
You've been on a couple of podcasts that I know of.
Yeah.
We share a passion for turf potentially. We've been employed in the turf industry for many years. I know you did a podcast with Peter McCormick not so long ago, so I won't go over your history too much. You were a turf superintendent, but if you could just give us a brief sort of resume, if you like, and sort of introduce us to your business, Greens Pro, as well.
You bet. So was a golf course superintendent, was an assistant superintendent. That was almost 13 years ago. So we've owned Greens Pro for about 12 and a half years right now. But I think like anybody else, started working in college at a golf course, and that progressed to a major change. And then I got my degree in plant science from the University of Missouri. And from the University of Missouri, I worked as an assistant at the golf course there at Mizzou. Went on to St. Clair Country Club in Belleville, Illinois, which is south of where your Chicago Bears are at, Phil. And then spent 10 years as a superintendent at St. Clair as well. And then from there, took a chance and started Greens Pro with a few guys I had worked with in the industry. And we've been doing that for almost 12 years now.
Right. So you've gone full circle from the guy buying the product to the guy supplying the product, if you would.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
You mentioned that you took a chance going to join Greens Pro or forming Greens Pro.
Right.
You said in a tweet you took a chance on Twitter as well, didn't you? That's where I picked up on you. Obviously, over in the UK, somebody that I was following shared one of your videos.
Right.
And fantastically funny they are too. Talk us through the early Twitter journey and just describe to me how it came about. Was it just, I'll do this for a laugh, or was there a bit of theory behind you joining Twitter?
You know, I'd been on Twitter. I'd have to look at my timeline, but I think I've been on there for over possibly 10 years or something like that. But I never really did a whole lot. I passively, kept up on things, read things, got a lot of my news from Twitter. But right at the start of the pandemic, Christy and I had been kind of grounded from playing music across St. Louis, Illinois, So we decided to do a random Twitter video one night, which was a music video. It was a Cher song, "Do You Believe in Love?"
Yeah.
And it had a little bit of legs, got a little bit of feedback, but my business partner, Jeff Baxter, encouraged me to do 50 videos, or at least until the pandemic ended or the lockdown ended. So we did 50 videos over a period of 50 days, which was actually quite difficult, coming home from work and having to crank out a video. The music videos actually took longer than any of the sales videos. They're just more, sometimes you miss notes. Christy didn't like the way it went, but those early days of Twitter, it was just almost serendipitous that I started doing those videos and got a little traction with the music videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just ask then about your relationship then with Twitter? If you're you had gone from kind of being a passive observer
Right.
of what's going on in the world to kind of actively taking like active steps to kind of promote or even just have a bit of fun on there. The reason I'm asking is I'm taking a self-enforced hiatus from social media at the moment. I found it particularly through COVID, but now again with things like the Ukraine conflict that's going on, it's a cesspit of dog shit and awfulness sometimes. And
I would agree.
From a mental health point of view, I get sucked in and I'm there for hours, just kind of like wasting time, wasting my life.
Right.
Is that something that has been a danger from your point of view, or is it a functional item where you go in, you record, you might interact with some of the comments that you might get back, and then it's shut down again? Have you got that discipline, or what's your relationship like with it?
I think I do. I mean, I catch up a little bit in the morning with what's going on, but I can scroll past things pretty easily. Probably more of my problem is I may get sucked in sometimes, to be honest. We're talking honestly here right now. I mean, I understand the metrics of videos now, of posts, and I still have yet to figure out what the formula is to get consistent views, to get people to consistently watch the videos. But maybe I get more sucked into trying to understand how I can broaden the viewership of the things that I'm trying to do.
So the getting 3,000 followers, most of which are single women, that's not worked out for you just yet. We saw that post.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, really what I enjoy the most about posts similar to mine. I mean, Stuart, you've been doing some stuff like that, is it gets me away from the cesspool that Twitter is. And anything that's lighthearted, anything that pokes fun at yourself, pokes fun at your business, your family, this huge nose I have, all kinds of stuff like that. I really enjoy humor that pokes fun at my own personal shortcomings. And that's really been, I think, my intent from the get-go, at least on the sales video, Stuart and Phil, was just to have a little fun. I mean, Turf Twitter's great, but how many times do I have to watch a guy running an air fryer? I mean, how many times do I have to watch slow-mo of sand being slung? So, I mean,
I'm still actually banned from our bigger Facebook page because many moons ago, I asked if we could limit the amount of slow-mo aerification stroke hollow time videos. So I haven't been allowed on the bigger Facebook page since 2014. So I found a brother in arms.
There you go.
No more slow-mo aerification, please.
I know. And I'm just messing. You got, it's all good. If you like watching slow-mo aerification, then, have at it. It's just, just having a little fun.
And I just, as I joked in my little video earlier, I hadn't really been researching your videos, but I mean, I've looked back at the majority of them, and it's the first two. And from, if you were, and I assume you were probably angling towards the turf industry, of course you were, but I did pick up on initially episode one. I don't know if you sort of actively tried to sort of confuse perhaps a broader audience, because over in the UK, you know, we get all the Syngenta products, but I mean, for me to go on posterity and tenacity, I mean, I thought it was a joke until I actually sort of logged on and sort of researched that they are actually products. But I mean, I found, you know, that particularly funny with you just ended up with, you know, so I'll just send you a case of Daconil, which anyone in the turf industry is the great all-rounder that everyone's always got in the back of the cupboard.
Yeah.
If in doubt, send that out. But then episode 2, I just want to ask you one thing. You mentioned the Celiprin. Was that targeting a UK audience in a crafty way? Because it's the huge buzzword over here, or was last year with our, you know, crane fly epidemic. And I just looked through it and I thought, if that is very, very clever, but I just wanted to know if it was as clever as potentially I thought.
I'm trying to remember. Was I talking about the misspelling or how the guy pronounced it?
I think potentially, yeah.
No, I think maybe I was poking fun at the crazy tank mixes that guys do all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things in the tank. And then Celiprin is either mispronounced or misspelled consistently. So, no, I think I was really, I certainly wasn't trying to, I'm trying to win over the UK audience. I don't want to offend anybody. So,
no, well, it wouldn't have offended anyone. It would have been, I just thought because how basically it went off market for a period over here, and it's now back on under a special label, single use per season.
I gotcha.
But
is that for the leather? Is it for the leather jackets over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just thought the greenkeepers over here are crying out for it and have been crying out for it for a period of 18 months. And I thought the fact that you just dropped it in there, I personally thought was very clever.
Okay. All right.
But Phil just mentioned that, you know, Twitter can be that cesspool of dog shit, I think you said, Phil.
Yeah, you're absolutely
right. I followed most of your videos. I don't scroll through the comments at all. But I know you talked with Peter about it on a previous podcast as well. You've managed to find that happy medium, or shall I just be honest? You've managed not to piss too many people off,
right?
Which is fantastic, because we all know anyone who wakes up in the wrong mood can log on Twitter and be offended by anything if they want to. Some people actively try to be,
right?
But has there been anything in the background? Have you had the odd message, oh, I wish you hadn't said that, or has it all been, you know, good? Because I mean, I personally think they're all fantastic, and you seem to be achieving what you set out to do.
Yeah, I would say, you know, 99% of everything has been very positive. You know, I had one video that went out and I had to take it down because there were some homophobic slurs that were being tossed around in the comments, and I have no tolerance for that.
Yeah.
And nor does Greens Pro, and I never want my company name to be drugged through anything that would be not favorable. But I think it really speaks to the community that you know, turf grass managers have, you know, throughout the United States and throughout the world. And it really is a brotherhood. And most guys have been very, very kind, very, very supportive. I had a couple this morning, guys telling me to just keep trying to pump out these videos, that they bring people joy, they make people laugh. But yeah, to answer your question, I have been very grateful, and I've been very lucky to go unscathed as far as trolls or people being ignorant or angry. So, but I keep it pretty light too, Stuart.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get involved with politics. I try not to get involved with, you know, selling products. You know, obviously I don't push product. I just enjoy poking out the fun parts of growing grass and selling products to help guys grow grass. So that's been my intent. So.
And like you said, if you're if your videos, if the person who you are poking fun at is yourself, then really the only comeback is going to be on yourself, isn't it?
Right. Right.
And I mean, I say I certainly almost look forward to them on a Saturday. They tend to come out sort of around lunchtime over here, so it gives me a good giggle. We talked about, before we sort of hit the live button, we talked about today's video, another good one. We'll sort of link it in the comments when we
Okay.
send this out. You touched on the fact that the world is sort of spinning in a potentially funny direction at the minute, without, again, you didn't get political or anything, but what I got from today's video was that we should be happy for what we've got, control what you can control, and try not to worry too much about what you can't control.
Right.
That's a very sort of positive outlook on life, and you know, that leads to where we want to sort of go with the next part of this podcast.
Right.
Were you born a positive guy? Did you come out with a big smile on your face, or have you been shaped by your we're all shaped by our parents, really, aren't we? And siblings, and potentially those sort of early years in school. So talk us through a bit, if you wouldn't mind, that sort of family as a young man. What shaped Paul and turned him into the positive guy we see on Twitter nowadays?
You know, I guess one of the things my wife has accused me of for a long time is I'm always on, whatever that means. But I'm usually high energy, very positive. I had amazing parents. I grew up looking at what's going on in the world right now with kids, what's going on with world conflict right now. I grew up stress-free. I've had an amazing life here in the United States. Never wanted for anything. My parents didn't spoil me. They just instilled a good work ethic, and I've made some good choices along the way, and I've had some people support me and taken some risks. I would tell you the greatest challenge that I had were raising my 3 children through their teenage years. And if there was ever a point in my life where my positivity or my smile was challenged on a daily, hourly basis, was raising 3 kids who fortunately at this point are all doing very well, but they certainly put Christy and I through the ringer. So, but typically, yes, I've been blessed with a wake up pretty happy, and I've been able to keep that going. And I try to relay that in the videos. I'm a blessed guy. I've been very fortunate my whole life with my health, with opportunity, and all the things that life has afforded me. So I should be smile. I got nothing not smile about. I'll tell you that. So
can I just ask then, just to expand as far as you are prepared and willing to, but you talked about kind of your positivity and smile being challenged by kind of being a parent. And I've got 2 kids. Stuart's got a daughter.
Yeah, one.
You know, I see that challenge, but just from your experience, what was a thing that was, or what sort of experiences were challenging that level of positivity that you had previously or before kids came along, perhaps?
You know, I have 3. My oldest is a young man. He's in Dallas, Texas. His challenges were more relatable to me as far as the challenges I had growing up. I think, you know, performing well athletically, making friends, getting through school. He was able to go on to college. He's a CPA down in Dallas. He's done a great job. So things came, I wouldn't say easy, but he was a sharp kid. No issues. He did really well. My 2 girls, one is 25 and one is 22, presented challenges that I was not used to. Anxiety, depression, learning to deal with the phone, learning to deal with social media, and all the stresses that come along with the young ladies trying to be popular, beautiful, successful, that they see all over the internet and all over social media. So, you know, and kids, You ask them to make a left turn, they make a right turn. So my children, they were not shy from challenging the rules and some of the things that Christy and I tried to lay down. But so those were some real challenges raising children. I talk about it all the time. The two hardest things in life I've had to do are, one is playing that guitar, and then two, and harder than guitar, is raising kids. So
yeah, well, I'm 5 years into it,
right.
and bumbling along at best. But
Right.
yeah, and I know Phil's a bit ahead of me on the timeline, but we talk
Right.
about it quite often, Phil, don't we? That it's raised a few issues that I never go. I didn't research parenting before I became a parent. Perhaps
Right.
I should have. But yes, it's been an eye-opening experience.
Absolutely.
You, just before we sort of move on to some of the more light-hearted stuff, Paul, I just want, because there will be a few greenkeepers, hopefully, that tune into this.
Right.
COVID, it gives the industry a right old whack. And you know, you've just described how you managed to stay positive through everything. And I know it was during COVID that your videos on Twitter started, but
Right.
that must have been a tough time for yourself as an individual, as a family, but for Greens Pro as a business. I mean, you'd say, you know, you're well over a decade into the business, but you must have struggled. How did you have to adapt, or did you just have to sort of lay low and wait it out?
Well, there was a moment when the lockdown started, there were businesses being chosen who could stay open and who couldn't stay open. I think the term was it necessary, or was it, I forget, there was a term they used to allow people to stay open. But fortunately, our business was one that was able to stay open without lockdown.
Okay.
I would tell you, I told Peter the same thing. Sales have grown. Maybe that's wrong. Sales haven't necessarily grown through COVID, but the receivables have gotten better. And I think it has everything to do with the fact that golf has become so much more popular the last 2 years. So our business didn't necessarily miss a beat. What did change was I was doing more just drop-off deliveries. I wasn't going in and talking with guys, going on the golf course, having meetings. It was more, hey, you know, I'd like a couple cases of this, a couple bags of this. I would drop, and then we would go on. But
I know.
COVID, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know we're sort of the world's getting over COVID now.
Right.
And now in the UK, I assume globally, but I've noticed a couple of companies on Twitter in the UK actually tweeted out yesterday that they're now going to have to reduce their site visits to only 3 days a week due to the fuel increase, you know, the petrol and the diesel costs. Yep. So it just seems to be one thing after another for the world, but certainly, you know, you guys who are out on the road, you know, yourself out in the van, these increase in prices, and then you're going to have superintendents telling you that they can't afford this 70-80% rise in fertilizer costs now, aren't they?
Right. Right.
But that's, you know, that again, I say it numerous times, that's potentially a whole nother podcast. Let's move on to some of the more lighter hearted stuff. Now, I've got something that's going to make Phil laugh. We want to talk briefly about your hats. So this is the best I could come up with today. Because I couldn't find a picture that anyone would print on a hat. But hats have been, I'm going to leave that on for a minute. Why?
Oh my God. That's awesome.
I might wear this at work next week.
I'm gutted you didn't send me one.
No.
I can. $19.99, $4 postage. I'll go back. Hats. Are you a hat wearer, or Paul? Are you a fan of hats, or was it a way? Was it a tool? Was the hats a tool, or have you always been a hat guy?
I don't. That hat right there, Stuart, is, if anybody should watch this podcast, it should be for that hat right there. So that is.
I won't show you what's underneath because you probably don't like the Pirates.
Yeah, it's okay. I have to give Brian Grill turf beard. Okay, and I've said this before. I literally stole his idea. He was passing these hats around and mailing them to people. And I said, you know what, I'm going to give it a shout, give it a try on, you know, when things were progressing with the videos. And it's bizarre. So we're selling these hats, and I've been sending these hats all over the world. You know, I got 2 in the UK. I know that for sure. We got 1 in Thailand, and then we got a bunch in Canada, and then all over the continental United States. But you know, it's weird. The Greens Pro logo really, really, really looks good on a Richardson hat, and it's been a big seller, and guys love them. But yeah, I love hats. I mean, I like making goofy videos with hats. I like naming them, you know, just all the nitwittery that goes on. It's just more fuel for me to do dumb shit with. I mean, I think it's funny that I even have conversations about these videos, because they are absolute nitwittery. There is nothing. I mean, Stuart, I appreciate you thought I had an angle with a Celeprint in England, but you're way too deep, man. I'm not that smart. It's just, I love movies like Talladega Nights and Step Brothers, and the dumber and the more 8th grade the humor, the more I'm in. I am a child. Christy calls me a child, and I got a buddy, Tim Rother, who tells me he's never going to grow up, and I love it when he says it, because I don't want to grow up either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly guilty. I think
you are. I love it.
I will be sitting on the sofa watching something, and my wife will look over at me because she knows I'm laughing at something I shouldn't be laughing at anymore.
Oh.
But yeah. Anything you want to go there, Phil, or shall
with hats?
Yeah, I don't think
what's your favourite hat? Have you got like a cat in the hat or something? No.
You two are lucky. You've got full heads of hair. Hats suit me because they you know, with my shiny head.
Yeah.
So let's move on to something, Paul, that I know, if anyone who just looks over your left shoulder there, let's talk music. I don't really talk music. From my video a little while ago, you'll know I don't play music either.
Yeah.
But music's a huge part of your life.
It is.
Explain to us what it means to you. Don't tell us where you'd be without it, because that's a silly question. But just what is music to you?
So, to me, it's, you know, it's the story of my life. It really is. I mean, I have my earliest memories are going through my parents' albums. And then for some reason, my dad had a pretty good stereo, and they were pretty supportive of me playing their old albums and turning it up. My sister and I lived pretty close growing up, and she constantly had on America's Top 40 with Casey Kasem. I don't know if you remember that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you do.
I don't, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And then my early relationship with Christy, you know, she would sing, I would sing. And I don't know, I was just able to parlay, you know, learning how to play guitar into the second most organic thing in my life. So midlife would be, you know, number 2, and then Greens Pro would be number 1. You know, Christy and I played last night. We got home at 11 o'clock last night, but we went and played a really cool bar last night. Had a great time.
Yeah.
It gives me an outlet to not be me. It gives me an outlet to have a little walking around money in my wallet. And it brings Christy and I a ton of joy. We've been doing that for about 8 years. We're slowing down a little bit, but it just brings me joy to play guitar, listen to her sing, and then occasionally we'll have a harmony or a song we do really well, and there's just a moment where you're like, you know, that was really good. So I've been very, very blessed with the support that the golf community has had with Christy and I playing music. So.
What's the genre of choice that you firstly that you play, and then secondly, maybe if it's different, what do you listen to that if it is different?
Yeah. So Phil, my choice would be, you know, I'm just an old 1980s kid, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. The angrier, the better. I used to like. But Christy and I we just play songs that if you're having a few beers at a pub, having a few beers at a bar, it would just be songs you'd want to hear.
Yeah.
Songs that would allow you to keep talking, to have a conversation, but maybe turn around and occasionally listen.
No. I think I don't play an instrument, but I obviously love music. But what I'm enjoying at the moment, my eldest is 14.
Yeah.
And through things like the Marvel series, where they play AC/DC, Arctic Monkeys, that sort of stuff, everything that's, there's a load of really good contemporary stuff, but there's some yesteryear stuff as well. And she is starting to discover, everything from Beatles, Bob Marley, Van Halen, and I'm like, get in there, love it, because we get to kind of connect on that a little bit. She started learning to play guitar as well, which is
there you go,
bigger choice. Hey, out you go.
She's right there.
Oh man, that's the first time that's happened in I don't know how many episodes. Child comes in.
But I recorded a podcast last night, and a cat went in front of the screen, so that was
okay. Good. But being able to connect on that level, it's so much better than kind of when they come home from school and we told that child, don't come home with a violin. We're not interested in hearing the violin. What did she come home with? fucking cello.
I was hoping for a trombone there, Phil.
Let's keep away from that with your infantile humour. Anyway. That might just be a British thing, I don't know, but we're not going into it on air, Paul. Sorry.
It sounds to me, Paul, that you use the music almost like, my sort of battles with alcoholism and anxiety over the years. I'm on the positive side of that now. And in the last 2 years, I sort of discovered running. I've been a sportsman all my life. People might sort of argue about to what sort of talent I had, but I wasn't a runner at all. But I've discovered running in the last 2 years, and I use it very much to manage my mental health, even on the really bad days, which are few and far between, thankfully now. Good. But music, to you, you'd struggle if someone said to you, put the guitar down for 6 months, you're not allowed near it. You'd struggle.
Absolutely. I would tell you, Stuart, that an argument could be made that guitar saved my marriage.
Right.
I mean, raising those kids was hard on my wife and I, and that was an outlet where we could do something together that didn't involve the stress of everyday life. It didn't involve work. It didn't involve parenting, and it was something that allowed us to be something we weren't used to doing. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been so good. So
excellent. Let's move on to, we've been over the next on my list was sort of parenting. We've discussed it, so we don't need to. I'm going to move on to sort of some quick fire questions, if you want.
I like it.
To finish the podcast off, really, and it's greenkeeping again. I sent these to you, so I just want sort of 3 bits of advice from you, Paul, if you'd be so kind. Initially, some advice to a youngster starting out over in the UK, and I think you mentioned it in today's tweet. You've got superintendent friends who can't find the labour. We've got a labour shortage, certainly amongst the younger greenkeepers in the UK. Some advice to a young greenkeeper anywhere in the world starting out in the industry?
I think when I was young, I think you have to listen to everyone. Listen to guys that have grown grass, listen to guys that have been superintendents, and just be open, have an open ear, and, listen to guys that have been very successful. And even listen to guys that aren't successful, and then form your own opinion with the people that you've worked for. But, so much of life, guys, is just showing up and working hard, working diligently, working thoughtfully. And I just think there's still a ton of opportunity throughout the world, or at least in America, for people that want to get in somewhere and do a good job and make an impact. So I always say, if you're gonna work, just go all out. Work as hard as you can.
So potentially the next 2, I mean, you could offer the same advice to the next 2 questions I've got for you, but we sort of suggested a mid-level greenkeeper trying to get that next promotion. Can he do anything a bit more than the advice you just offered the younger greenkeeper?
You know, there's a lot of, as far as education wise, we have a lot of 2-year programs that are gaining some popularity here.
Yeah.
A lot of things that you can do online. Get involved with the local association, write articles for the local newsletter.
Yeah.
Work as many hours as you can. I mean, I have several instances of guys who just started out on a crew here in St. Louis and that have progressed and become assistant superintendents, superintendents. I think there's so much opportunity right now that if you're just open and willing to listen and work diligently, I think there's going to be opportunity down the line just because we have so few people that are willing to do the job.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that is true the world over, isn't it?
Right.
And finally, if again, it might be pushing it because you've offered so much good advice, but as a superintendent, I've got here some advice for a superintendent who may be struggling. But I think with regards to a superintendent, head greenkeeper in the UK who may be struggling, it may be something away from that growing of turf, mightn't it? Because you are more than likely a father and a husband away from the golf course. You are in charge of a crew of anything from 10 to 30 guys.
Right.
You potentially are looked at as a father within your team to some of the younger guys. So would the advice to someone, a superintendent who might be struggling, you've got your guitar back there, I keep referring to it, potentially find something away from golf? If it's possible, there's superintendents working 80, 90 hours a week, go home, and then they've got another 5 hours to do with the kids, haven't they?
Right.
But
right.
Is that some advice that we could potentially offer to someone at the top of the tree who might be struggling? Because it's often hard to reach out. When you're at the top, you've got the guys below you knocking on your door asking you for advice. And who do you go and see then? I mean, for me, that was my problem. I didn't go and see my wife, my parents.
Right.
So I've probably answered the question there, haven't I?
No, I think you have to, like anything in life, you got to have some balance. I didn't have a choice when I was a superintendent raising the kids, just like you said. I'd get home from work and then you're taking kids to ball games, you're taking your daughters to gymnastics or Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. It's tough. The problem with that job sometimes is even though you're off, you're not off. You're thinking about the weather. You're thinking if people showed up for work. You're thinking about, what a member said to you. You're concerned about all kinds of things. So it's a very difficult job, especially when you're raising kids. But one thing I would probably say is, looking back, I would have tried to schedule more weekends off with my assistant, and maybe done that a little bit differently. Just try to get a little bit more time off on the weekends so you don't miss so much. But that's a tough life, Stuart. That growing grass, especially here in the transition zone, there's nothing easy about it, and it's going to be difficult for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And then you got to take the 6 months where we got the shoulder seasons here, where you relax and get some time back. But maybe find something that you can do. Guitar is tough because guitar takes so much time. It's a very difficult thing to learn. And, but yeah, anything you could find, whether it's exercising, whether it's meditating, whether it's being involved with a church, being involved with a group. I think you have to just be able to distance yourself at sometimes with work. So
definitely fantastic advice.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Phil, I've worked through my papers here. You've been scribbling away. Have you got anything you want to pick up on before?
Yeah, no, I have just been scribbling away. I think I'd like to. I'm interested because of these. Your videos are successful,
right?
And what I don't want to do is kind of do the whole Wizard of Oz thing and ruin the illusion of what goes on. But maybe if there is a peep behind the curtain about how the production of those videos, in terms of, because it's not just piece to camera, is kind of, some good production, some good editing. Are you scripting? How much of it is ad-libbed? Do you do you bounce it off anybody to make sure it's appropriate, that you're not going to, you know, take the wrong track? You know, if you've got that, that sense of humor that kind of appeals to the kind of the dumb side of things,
right?
You know, you have to hit the right note, I guess, with what you're putting out there. So what's the process?
So that's evolved, which has been interesting. No different than, you know, playing guitar when we do shows, or no different than as you guys have done your podcast here. I'm sure there's things you learned along the way that didn't work, whether it was the lighting, whether it was the script, whether it was the type of guest you want. It's kind of a weird thing. Sometimes I can plan them out, but sometimes they just kind of come to me. The other night I was letting the dog out in the middle of the night, and we have a swing outside, and that's when I did the video that was kind of the Narcos meme. I'm not sure that went over a lot of people's head, but I, you know, in my own mind, I thought it was brilliant. But
I had to point it out to Peter. We would meet Peter McCormick. We were discussing it, and I think a few people had missed it. I've seen the series, so I picked up on it straight away. But if you haven't seen the series, then you'd have no reason to understand it potentially.
Exactly. But a lot of that stuff is just organic. My mind constantly racing. My mind constantly thinking of things. I will tell you, the big game changer for the sales videos was TikTok.
Right.
And what TikTok allows is, instead of memorizing or practicing a 2-minute and 20-minute script, which can be difficult. Those are tough. You know, those early videos where I was rambling for 2 minutes to keep your thoughts going without looking at notes was difficult. But Christy started shooting these TikToks with me where I can take, you know, different thoughts or different things, and then you can kind of incorporate them with the 3-minute, or, you know, the little shots where you can end it. But you know, that's been a game changer. Christy does all the editing, so she knows how to work the edits. She'll throw in some things, but it's a work in progress. I guess the most frustrating thing is, I think I'll do something and it's silly. I'm like, that's really, really good. This is really going to perform and do well. And to be honest with you guys, I don't have enough followers. If I don't get retweets,
we're experiencing that.
Yeah.
So you know, I've got about 1,000 followers on Twitter. There's only so much I can do, and half of my followers aren't in the podcasting, aren't into podcasts.
Right. So, you know, it's a work in progress, and I was going to get away from it, but I have no outlet for creativity with Greens Pro. Okay, I have none. As a superintendent, you know, you would work all week, and at the end of the week, you would have something to show for your work. You know, as a sales guy and an owner of a company, I mean, sure, you can look at what you sold or how the company's doing, but I enjoy the creativity of doing the videos. I also do a monthly newsletter that I send out on Twitter. But the writing, the music, and the videos are just myself being creative, and I enjoy it. I think people enjoy it, and but it is hard to figure out that Twitter algorithm, and I still don't know what it is. I have no idea if it's the hashtags, if it's who you at. It's just hard, but I think if you guys, us guys, if you're having fun doing it and you're not hurting anybody, then I don't know.
Keep going.
Yeah, so I'd agree with that.
With what you've just said, then there's kind of, it sounds like at the moment you're really enjoying doing the videos. If it became a chore, because you just mentioned that you were thinking about stepping away, if it became a chore or even a stress that actually I can't think of the next funny thing, or it's just kind of plateaued, would you'd be quite happy to stop?
Yeah, I would be lying to tell you that I don't enjoy what the videos have been able to do for me personally. I mean, I'm talking to you guys, you know, and I would never, ever have had the opportunity to talk to you, Phil and Stuart, and you wear that hat. I mean, and that's really I think the takeaway message is, has it grown sales? Absolutely not. but have I been able to grow as a person? And if I met you guys in London for a beer, you know, we'd sit down and it'd be like we were old friends. And that's really been the cool part about this whole thing is I would say at this point, I have hundreds of friends across Twitter that have just been kind and genuine and receptive to music videos, to sales videos. And that's really cool. I mean, it really is. And if I ran into you guys, we'd totally hang out, which is cool. So, but as long as they keep popping into my head, Phil, you know, we have 2 of them. You asked me, I have 2 set up next week. We got one. I got the one the week after that I'm actually working on with Paul McCormick, who's the mindful superintendent.
Yeah.
He's got some great ideas. I got one, and Dan Francis and I are going to do another one. And I know you're talking to Dan Stewart. So
Dad's coming on in a couple of weeks.
I love it.
The cigar smoking charcuterie board king, I like to call him.
God. But you know, the first time I met Dan Francis, it was like we were old friends, and I think that really would be the part that I would miss, Phil, that the connection that I've been able to make, that people have made with me, if I had to drop that cold turkey, I would miss that.
Yeah.
I love talking to Dan Francis and Ben McGraw and Mike Richardson, and you know, Tim Krieger. Just good dudes, man.
Cool. Very good.
Fantastic. I think we're probably at about our time limit. So I'm going to put this fantastic hat back on. I'm going to say, please like, rate, and review. We're going to try and work that algorithm out. Yes, you can log on to buymeacoffee.com and make a donation to the podcast if you like. You don't have to, of course. And I will put the show notes for my mum's walk. Mr. Paul Hurst, you were described as the most interesting man in turf. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on Henry Weston's Old Mate the podcast. Phil, thank you so much for your input tonight. I'm not sure I've enjoyed being this side of the camera, let's say. You can maybe have your hosting duties back in the future. I'm going to take this hat off now.
I love it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Good evening.
Be well.